that pops open the chat. And while we're going through things today, if you have any questions, you can type them right in there, and he's gonna answer them. He knows just as much about Google Classroom as I do, so he's very well equipped to answer all of your questions. If he gets stumped, which is rare, I'll admit, if you stump Stu, that's impressive. If he gets stumped, he'll interrupt me and ask me the question. Or if he finds there's kind of a trend or a theme or something that everybody might benefit from me demonstrating again, then he's gonna go ahead and just interrupt me and let me know. With that, Google Classroom is, it's kind of like a learning management system. It's not like a big, full-fledged, really robust one, but it's kind of like a light learning management system, which means it's a great place to put classwork like assignments, resources, readings, videos, materials, things you want your students to access. And it puts it in a nice, kind of like safe classroom space. So it's a space that only the people you add as students and the people you add as co-teachers can access. So it's really nice and secure. With that, we often recommend it for grades 3 through 12. It's pretty age appropriate for 3rd grade on up. We do see K through 2 teachers that use it and really love it, and that's great. But we also find that a lot of times Seesaw is a really great alternative to Classroom for some of those younger grades that was designed for early elementary. And so if you are a K through 2 teacher or like a pre-K TK teacher, you are absolutely welcome to stick around and learn about Classroom, but do know that it is kind of intended for a little bit older of a student audience. You may have seen in the distance learning guidance document that was distributed to all teachers that they said you had to have a Google Classroom. You can also have a Seesaw. So again, those younger teachers that, younger grade teachers that feel like maybe Seesaw's a better fit, it's okay to swap out Classroom for Seesaw. So with that, we are gonna go ahead and jump in. I will give you a heads up, this takes pretty much the full hour. If you have any questions, we do have office hours today from 12 to 2, and I actually run those office hours, so you're welcome to come and visit me and ask all your Google Classroom questions. I will also let you know that it is gonna go kind of fast. There's just a lot of stuff to cover in Classroom. And so if you are brand new to Classroom, don't fret, don't worry. Just pick up a couple things today and work on those things, and then go back and watch the recordings and pick up a couple more things. It's something that's kind of like teaching, that you'll get better at it over time. The more you do it, the better you'll get. And don't overwhelm yourself with trying to learn everything today, because I will give you a heads up, it is a lot. So with that, we are gonna go ahead and jump in. I'm gonna share my screen, and I'm gonna go into Classroom. So I'm gonna choose that. Okay, great. There it goes. Okay, so there are 2 ways to get to Google Classroom. You can go to classroom.google.com, and you can see as I started to type that, it filled it in for me. And so I'm gonna go ahead and just push enter. And you'll see that it loads this, this homepage is what we call it. It's the Classroom homepage. And all my classes are showing up here as tiles. This is that Classroom homepage. You can also get to Google Classroom with the waffle. So it's up here in this upper right-hand corner. You'll find it in Gmail. You find it in Drive. It's how you might access a lot of your Google apps. If I click on the waffle, then you'll see I've got all these apps in here I can go to. If you, the first time you use the waffle and Classroom in the waffle, you might have to scroll down. It's kind of towards the bottom, but you can actually drag and drop. So I've actually moved Classroom up here to the top, and you can actually drag and rearrange these, which is a pretty nice feature. So if I click on Classroom in the waffle, you'll see it brings me to the exact same place, that home page when it loads. There it goes, with all those tiles. To enter a class, I just click on its tile, pretty simple. If you don't have a class yet, you need to make a new class. There's this plus button up here in the upper right-hand corner, again, by the waffle. So if I click on that, it allows me to join a class or create a class. A good heads up for you is that students cannot create classes, they can only join classes. So when they click on that plus, they'll only see the join class option. But since you're an FSUSD employee, you will also see a create class option. When I click on that, it brings up a little window. You'll see that I have to give it a name that's required. This is a great moment to kind of think about how you want to organize your classes. I taught high school, and I taught high school Spanish. And so I decided to have each of my class periods. So even though I might teach Spanish 1, 3 periods throughout the day, I had different classrooms for each period. So I had Spanish 1 period 3, Spanish 1 period 4, Spanish 1 period 6. And I like that because I could kind of differentiate based on the different periods. You know, if 3rd period was really interested in Enrique Iglesias, we could do more things with Enrique Iglesias without having it, show up for the other 2 classes. So I like that ability to kind of differentiate. If you have heard about the Synergy Gradebook integration, where you can have Synergy Gradebook talk to Classroom, that's something you'll want to have all your classes be separate. You'll want them to be separate periods so they can match up with your sections in Synergy. So this is kind of that moment to decide, do I want to do separate periods? Or I could have grouped all of my Spanish 1 kids into one giant class. It's kind of up to you and how you want to separate it out. You can post things to multiple periods at once. So if you're thinking like, oh, I would separate them out, but I've got 5 periods, that's making the same thing 5 times, you can actually post to multiple classes at once. So again, I would kind of strongly encourage that different sections have their own classroom, but it is totally your choice, totally up to you. So again, if I'm creating a class, I would give it a name. The section, subject, and room spaces are optional. I can put something in or not. I can also edit them later. So if I decide to leave them blank for now, I can always go back and change them. The same thing with the name. So if I call this a test class, and later on I'm like, no, this actually turned out really well, I want to make it my real one and I want to put students in it, then you can actually rename the class and go from there. So I'm not going to make another class. I do not need another class in my life, so I'm going to cancel here. And I'm going to go into my sandbox class. This is my class where I play. And so I enter the class just by clicking on its tile. And now I'm inside that sandbox class. You'll see that the very first place it brought me is a place called the stream. So if I look in that top bar, I can see that it's called the stream. And I can tell I'm here because there's a dark, thick line underneath the word stream. So I know I'm on the stream tab. The stream is always the first place it brings you in Classroom. We will talk more about the stream a little bit later, but because it's always the first place it brings you, you can use it to develop some routines with your students. So like I said, we'll talk about that more a little later. I want to move over to the classwork tab. So I'm going to click on that classwork tab. And again, I can tell I'm on the classwork tab because that dark line has moved and now it's under classwork. The classwork tab is where all of your stuff goes. And so anytime you're posting a reading or a video for students to look at or use, anytime you're posting something you want them to turn in, that's all going to go on that classwork tab. The next tab over is the people tab. So I'm going to click on that. And again, I can tell I'm on that people tab because that dark line has moved. And the people tab is where all the people are. So I can see who are my co-teachers in this class. For example, I've got Steve added here as a co-teacher. If I want to add another co-teacher, there's this person with a plus sign button right here at my teachers. If I hover over it, it says invite teachers. When I click on it, I can type in a person's name or email address. I'm going to add Stu to my class as a co-teacher. So when I click invite, this is going to send Stu an email that says, hey, you've been added as a co-teacher. Do you want to be a co-teacher? And you'll see that Stu is kind of grayed out here, right? He's not like in full color, and it says invited in parentheses behind him. And what that's telling me is that email has gone to Stu, but he hasn't clicked accept yet. He hasn't agreed to co-teach my class. And so once he does that, then he'll turn into full color. That invited will disappear like Steve is. His name and picture will look like Steve's because he's accepted it. So you can kind of tell again that, I've invited him. I've done my part in my class, but he has to go into his email and join, accept that co-teaching invitation. You'll see that next to each of these people, oh, that's a great question, Melanie, asking about how to add a co-teacher that doesn't have an SFUSD email address. Yes, you can add external email addresses. We have our settings in Classroom set to be as open as possible so that we're able to, because not just teachers, Classroom teachers use use Classroom. We see a lot of central office leaders that use it to distribute materials and information as well. And so we have the settings as open as possible. So yes, you can add a non-SFUSD email as a co-teacher. You'll probably have to type in or paste in the full email. So like how I was able to just type in Stu and it suggested him for me, you'd probably have to copy and paste in that whole email. So if you have like a student teacher or something with a university email address, you could add them. It does have to be a Google related email. That's a really important point that I almost forgot. So kind of like how our SFUSD emails are Google emails, even though they don't say @Gmail. Many universities also use Google. So you'd want to, again, if you have a student teacher, you want to check with them to see if it's a Google account. Otherwise, they could create a professional looking Gmail account that they could use to access Classroom. So the you can see next to Steve's name here, I've got this little like vertical 3 dots. I call it the snow person menu, like 3 balls of snow on a snow person. And so when I click on it, you'll see I've got some options here. I can email Steve. I can also remove Steve. So if I decided I didn't want Steve to be a co-teacher anymore, I could remove him. So for example, maybe I will remove Stu because maybe I decided I don't need him as a co-teacher in my class. And so maybe I didn't mean to add him. So now he's gone. He no longer has access to this class. Your principals or administrators might ask you to add them as co-teachers. And that just gives them a view into your classroom to be able to see what, what assignments are you assigning, how many kids are turning stuff in. It kind of again gives them that like peek into your classroom. Like if, they might normally walk in and just, quickly kind of see what's going on. This allows them to do that virtually. So again, you would add your principal or administrator by clicking that plus sign. It can also be a good idea to add co-teachers that are that are in your grade level team or in your department. So for example, again, I taught Spanish. I might add my fellow Spanish 1 teachers as co-teachers in my in my Google Classroom. And what's nice about that is that, it gives them that peek into my classroom to kind of see like what am I assigning. I can then, if they add me as a co-teacher, I can peek into their classrooms and see. You can also, again, assign things to multiple classrooms. And so we can have a common assignment that we both give our students. And then you can also reuse posts from other classes where you're a teacher. And so again, if I see that they've got a really great assignment that they gave their students, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I want to do that too. Is it okay if I use that? And they say yes, then I can go in and I can reuse an assignment because I'm a co-teacher in their class that's posted in their class. So again, I would invite co-teachers. You can have up to 20 co-teachers. So that's a lot of people. Moving down, you'll see that I've got a list of all my students. For the most part, my students are dummy student accounts. I have another Steve in here. We were playing around with some testing last night. But most of these are our dummy student accounts. So they're showing this weird show student number. Your students, we would say their name. So you would see a name there. Again, you add students with that same person plus sign. You will probably need to, you can copy and paste in their email address. But you can actually do multiples. I don't have to do them each one individually. So if you have a spreadsheet that lists out all of your student email addresses, you can copy the whole column in your spreadsheet and paste it in here. And then you'd be able to click invite, and you can invite them all at once instead of having to do it, push that button multiple times to invite students. Once, again, those students will be grayed out. They'll have that gray, kind of gray looking, and then that invited in parentheses behind them until they go into their email and join your class. So if you're seeing students that, again, that still say invited behind them, they have not yet joined your class. They're not seeing anything that you're posting. So you might want to reach out to them kind of with another method to be like, hey, haven't joined the class yet. Please do that. Go to your email, that sort of thing. You'll see on the left side here, I've got some checkboxes, and there's this actions menu that's gray. I can't click on it right now. If I check at least one person, you'll see that it lights up. Mine lights up pink because everything in my classroom is pink, just because that front banner on the stream when I first got there was pink. But yours might be blue or orange or green. And so when I click on that actions, I've got some things I can do. I can email, in this case, this is Steve. I can email Steve. I can remove Steve. So if I didn't mean to have him in this class, or if he changed sections or periods, I could switch him out. I can also mute him. And muting him means that he can't comment. If I allow commenting privileges for students in the settings, this allows me to mute one or two students that maybe aren't using it appropriately without taking away that feature for everybody. We'll talk more about muting when we talk about the stream. You'll see, I'm going to skip over this middle column here for just a second. I promise I will come back and talk about it, but I want to talk about the snow person menu. So you'll see here, I've got that snow person menu, and when I click on it, there's not a whole lot in here. I can email the student, which I could already do with those checkboxes. Once I have a guardian here, so you'll see like that Steve, it says invite guardians, but down here for show student 40, I've actually added a guardian for the student. When I click on my snowman menu, I've got some more options. I can email the student or the guardians. I can also invite and add more guardians, or I can remove guardians. And what guardians do is you would add guardians if you're going to use guardian email summaries. A student can have up to 10 guardians, and so again, I can add more guardians here. And then if somebody loses ed rights or doesn't want to be on here, I can also remove them. If I mistype an email or something, I can remove them here. This guardians column, I will talk about it more in the settings because you have to turn on a setting first for it to work. You also won't see an invite guardians button until the student has joined. So if it still says invited in parentheses behind their name, you won't see that invite guardians button in the middle. Okay. I'm going to keep moving down those tabs. The grades tab, you can actually kind of ignore. By default, if you change no settings in Classroom, that grades tab is invisible. Students won't see it. They don't know that it's there. And I would recommend leaving it that way. Classroom has a gradebook. It's not a great gradebook. And you're already in the habit of keeping your Synergy gradebook up to date. And so while there are teachers who use the gradebook and who do love it within Classroom, it does mean a second gradebook to maintain. And I don't know about you, but personally, I only want to maintain one. Plus, the Synergy gradebook is the one that families and students are used to looking at for their grades. It's the one that really counts. And so if something is miscalculating in Classroom, and it says the student has 100% in Classroom, but in Synergy it says they have a C, that's a really tough conversation to have with a student that you have the C. So again, this grades tab, I would say, especially if you're new to Classroom, just ignore it. Kids can't see that it's there if you don't turn it on. So I would just ignore it and not pay any attention to it. Moving further to the right, there's this cog or this gear button. These are my settings for this particular class. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to take me into my settings. And you'll see this first part is, again, where I can change those things. So I can change the name of the class if I want to. I can add a section, change any of these things I put in when I made the class. The next thing I have here is this general settings section. You'll see that I've got a setting here about the stream and what students can do in the stream. We'll talk more about what this setting means when we talk about the stream, but for now, know that that setting is in here. The same thing, this determines what shows up on the stream. And again, we'll talk about that more when we talk about the stream, but know that that setting is in here. Guardian summaries is a big thing I do want to talk about. That's, again, how you get that invite guardians column in the middle in the people tab. And you can see I have this turned on. The option above here is off. You'll see it's gray, it's to the left. And when I turn something on, it goes in color. Again, it uses pink because my classroom is pink, but it's in color. So for example, this one above, if I turn it on, you'll see that now it's in color. If I turn it off, it goes back to gray. So if you turn on Guardian Summaries, what it does is it allows guardians kind of like a peek into your classroom, but personalized for their student. And so if you turn on Guardian Summaries and you invite guardians in that middle column in the People tab, those guardians get an email, and that email says, you've been added as a guardian for this student in this class. And it'll say, do you want to receive email summaries? And they can say yes or no. And if they say yes, it asks, do you want to receive them daily or weekly? And they'll choose. That's a setting that they choose. You can't force that they all get weekly or anything like that. That's a setting that they choose. And then once they choose that, they will get either daily or weekly emails updating them about their own students. So it will let them know what items are missing, what things have passed the due date, but their student hasn't turned it in yet. It lets them know what are some upcoming due dates, some things that are already posted that are upcoming. And then it also gives them a brief summary of what's happened in the class since their last email. So since the last day or since the last week, depending on what their frequency was that they chose. Stu, will you put that resource in the chat? We have a resource that we made for families to explain what Guardian email summaries are. And so I recommend that you look over that resource and kind of learn. It shows an example of what a Guardian email summary looks like and explains like what's in there versus what's not. You can, again, also then share that resource with other families. So, if you're going to turn on email summaries, you can say, hi families, I'm going to turn on email summaries. Here's a resource about email summaries so you know what to expect. And you can copy and paste family emails from Synergy. There is no way to directly import all of them. You do have to individually add each and every one. But again, it's a really good look. Right now, while you can't necessarily talk to a student face to face, you can't necessarily meet with parents or families. You can call them, but it's sometimes not the same. When maybe all of your classwork is happening within Classroom, it can be nice again to give them that peek in. So I do encourage that Guardian email summaries. You at least consider it. It's a really great, again, personalized look into the classroom for their own students. What is your student missing? What is upcoming for your student? So again, I would consider that, but you turn that on here in the settings. This next box right down here, this showed up yesterday. So this is fresh, hot off the press, brand new. Google Meet is now kind of integrated. Classroom now supports Meet. We're going to have webinars on this on Friday, April 17th. So if you are interested in using Google Meet with your students, you might already be using Zoom, and that's totally fine. No need to switch or change just because Classroom can work with Meet. But if you are interested in using Meet, or even thinking about it, like, I don't know, Zoom or Meet, Meet does now talk to Classroom, which is pretty cool. If you're in your class, it says, the first thing it says is, instead of this URL, it says generate Meet link. I was excited and already clicked on that, so mine has a Meet link, but there'll be a button here that says generate Meet link. If you don't want a Meet link for your class, just don't click that button. You don't have to have one by any means. So this is again, this is a brand new feature. We're still doing some testing to really figure it out, but we will have a webinar on this particular feature inside of Classroom, and just in general how to use Meet with students a week from today. But in here, again, if you don't want it, again, it's a generate Meet link button that you just don't have to click it. Once you have clicked it, it does give you a link that you can copy, or you can also reset. If you need a new link for whatever reason, you can actually reset it here. And then there's an option down here to either make that Meet link visible to students or not. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on just so I can show you where it does show up. It's truly just whether they can see it or not. The setting literally is visible. So that's all it is. It doesn't change anything about the Meet itself. But I'm going to turn it on just so you can see where it shows up. And then at the very bottom here, here's those grading settings. Again, if you don't touch those at all, the gradebook is off. Kids can't see it. You'll see that it's not calculating an overall grade. You'll see that this setting on here, show overall grade to students, is off. And I would just, again, I'd recommend leaving it that way. You can tie your gradebook, your Synergy gradebook, to Classroom. We do recommend it for more intermediate or advanced users of Google Classroom. So again, if you are brand new to Classroom, or if you're feeling pretty unsteady about Classroom, I would, hold off on that integration and just kind of get used to Classroom. Learn the difference between assignments and materials. Kind of get your feet wet and feel really good with Classroom. And then in a couple of weeks, go ahead and tie the two together. Stu, do you have it's a 7-page long document, but it's very thorough about how to tie the two together, so that when you're ready, you can go through and you can integrate the two is the word we use. So that they talk to each other. So things you put in Classroom will show up in Gradebook, and things you put in Gradebook will show up in Classroom. Do you have that, Stu?
Is it one of the useful links under helpful links for webinar moderators?
I think so, maybe not. I have it if you don't.
Okay, if it's there, I'll find it.
Okay, I've got it right here.
Okay.
Maybe you can add it to that if I didn't put it in there.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so again, here's that resource. It's very, very thorough. It goes through all the steps. It shows screenshots. Should be pretty easy to follow. We are also going to have webinars next week on that Google Classroom Synergy Gradebook integration. So you can also come to those webinars next week and get some questions, or just learn more about it if you're interested in that. But again, this grading settings, I would just leave them alone for now. So at the very top, there's this save button. I do need to click it so I save all of my settings. If it's grayed out, it's because I didn't make any settings. Okay, so now I'm back on that People tab where I was before. I'm going to go over to the far left. So we kind of talked about this top bar, but we didn't talk about the one in the upper left-hand corner, which is those 3 horizontal lines. I call it the stack of pancakes because we have the waffle on the right side, and then I call it the stack of pancakes on the left side. I guess I just really like breakfast. But when I click on it, it pops out that side menu. And so you'll see the very first thing in the side menu is a little house, and it says classes. That'll take you back to that home page with those tiles of classes. I can click that if I need to go back and create a new class. So if I'm going through and creating all my classes, I can go back to the home page to create a class. But if I just want to go between classes, I can actually do that right here in the sidebar. That I can choose, another class that I teach. I can click on that, and now I'm in that other class. And again, I can click on that stack of pancakes, and I can go to another class. I can go really easily between my classes without going all the way back to the home page of the tiles and then back into the class. The other neat thing in this stack of pancakes is all the way at the very, very, very bottom. Scroll all the way down. I have a lot of classes, like I said. The very bottom, there's something called settings. These are your overall classroom settings. And more specifically, these are your email notification settings. And so you can choose what kinds of emails you get from Classroom. And so if I'm going to scroll down here a little bit. And so I can choose, does Classroom send me an email if someone comments on my post? When I get to choose when Classroom sends me these emails. And so At first, you might want to leave them all on and just kind of see which ones you need and which ones you don't. A really good example, I feel like, is this one here. It says late submissions of student work. So if a student submits something late to an assignment, Google Classroom, if you have it turned on over here like I do, it's blue, it's in color to the right. Google Classroom will send you an email saying that so-and-so submitted this assignment late, which I like because it notifies me I need to go grade their work, because I don't check old assignments to see if somebody turned something in, to see if there's any new ones that have been submitted. So, but that's like part of my routine is I just know Classroom will email me, so I don't have it in my routine. But if you're going to be in the habit of going back and checking old assignments to see if anyone new has submitted them, then maybe you turn this off. You don't need the email. So again, I kind of leave them all on at first and see, and you're like, oh, I don't need Classroom to tell me when someone turns something in late. Then you can go in and turn it off. At the very bottom here, there's a section for class notifications. If I click it, that expands it, and you'll see it lists out all the classes I am in. There's a lot of them. And I can also turn off emails for an entire class. So a really good example of this, again, is if I had, my fellow Spanish 1 teacher added me as a co-teacher, I don't want emails from their class when somebody turns something in late. So I might turn off emails entirely for that class. And again, I just click on it. Blue means it's on. If I click on it again, it turns gray and it turns off. And so again, you can kind of decide, but those settings again happen in the stack of pancakes at the very bottom in settings. Okay, I'm gonna go back to my sandbox class. And you can see that, remember that I made that Meet link visible, and so I can see it here on the stream. Students will be able to see it here in the stream. I want to talk about the classwork tab, and you can also see the Meet link in the classwork tab. So see there's this button here now that says Meet. And that's because I made that visible. I'm going to go into settings really quickly and turn it off so it's not visible, so you can see that those will go away. Go save. And so now you can see that Meet link is gone, and then back in the stream, you'll see that it's no longer there in the stream either. So that's what that visible setting is. It's just whether they can see it or not. So in the classwork tab is where you're going to put all of your stuff. So anytime you have a reading or a video for students to read or watch, if you have an infographic you want them to look at, if you have a homework assignment you want them to do something and turn it in, that all happens on the classwork tab. And you'll see I've got this big create button at the top. If I scroll down, that create button gets hidden. It's like it gets stuck up under. So if you're ever here and you can't see the create button, you just have to scroll back up and it'll be there. When I click on it, I get some options. I can create an assignment. I can create a quiz assignment. I can make a question, which is a single multiple choice or short answer question. It's great for discussions or kind of polling people to see how things are going. I can add a material. So that's going to be like a resource. Like a one-way thing. I'm giving you a thing. I'm passing it out. Maybe it's a reading or a video, something you're going to look at or read. I can reuse posts. Remember we talked about how if you're a co-teacher in other classes, you can actually reuse other teachers' assignments where you're a co-teacher in their class. So that can be really, really great for collaboration. And then at the very bottom, I've got this topic option. I'm going to make a topic because topics are the backbone of your classwork tab. They're kind of like folders or buckets. It's how people find things in your classwork tab by you filing them away under the right topic. And pre-distance learning, my topics oftentimes were like my unit names, unit 2.1, or they might be like chapters, chapter 2, chapter 3. And that was fine because I could always just help students find it, right? We're in class, they can be like, no, scroll down, it's further, it's under chapter 3. We're in chapter 3 now. I could, give them that help and that, one-on-one support. But now that I can't sit next to them, I can't, make sure they're scrolling down when they need to scroll down. You might want to rethink the way you do your topics. And a way that I've been modeling, just some food for thought, you can make your own choices about your classroom. I've been modeling using dates and using having a week as a topic. And I like that because it, kind of is that hint to students that like, this is the stuff for this week. And if you need to go back and work on something from last week, it's really easy to find it. Whereas like, again, if you do chapters, a student might be like, are we in chapter 2 or chapter 3? I don't know. And so that can be a little bit confusing. And again, you're not there to help them find stuff. And I taught high school, and so I don't know about your students, but I definitely had a couple students that if they couldn't find it, they were like, Ma, I must not have to do anything. And to me as a teacher, I was like, obviously you'd have to do something. Why would you think you don't have to do anything? But it's not always obvious to our students. And so I'm going to, again, kind of model that topic method. And so I'm going to do it for next week, April 13 through 17. So I've got the Monday date through the Friday date. And I'm going to click Add. And now you can see that April 13th through 17th, where did it go? I don't see it. When you create a new topic, it makes it at the bottom. So I have to scroll all the way down, which is getting kind of long now, all the way down, and there's my April 13th through 17th. Again, you know, in pre-distance learning, I might have left my, I might have, you know, just left things at the bottom, that, you know, new stuff was always at the bottom because I could just tell kids to scroll down. That was fine. But, you know, again, with me not being by their side, with, you know, not being able to help them find things, I really want to make sure I'm not having them waste a bunch of cognitive effort and mental energy to try and find what they need to do. Like, that's really frustrating. I would feel frustrated if I couldn't find what I need to do. It might be anxiety inducing. And so I like to rearrange it so that the newest stuff is actually at the top. So when they come to the classwork tab, the stuff they see is the stuff they need to do. They don't have to like search for it at all. And that's just a way that I kind of like to organize it. Your classroom is totally up to you. You can choose to organize it the way you want to, but you might want to think about putting newest stuff actually at the top. So I can rearrange these really easily. I can actually drag and drop. So if I hold it down, I can, you know, drag it up above, and I can keep dragging here. Sometimes when the things get a little bigger because they've got stuff on them, that gets a little bit harder to kind of drag and drop. And so in this topics snow person menu, the 3 dots, I can click on it and I can also move it up or move it down. So I can move up and I can move up. And 2 more, I think, move up and then move up. And now when they come to this classwork tab, the very first thing they're going to see is the stuff for this week, the stuff they need to do. And again, if they need to go back to like last week's stuff, they can scroll down a little bit and find last week's stuff, but that way the newest stuff is always at the top. You'll also see over here on the left that all my topics are also listed here. So there's that one I just added, it's at the top, and then the one for last week. And if I click on one of these on the side, it filters the page. So it shows just the stuff that was posted under that topic. In this case, it's all date related, so it's the stuff for those dates. But I can switch between topics and find different sets of filtered things. Again, the topics are going to be how they navigate the classwork tab. So when you're making stuff, you always want to make sure you're putting it under that topic. In this 3-dot menu, we talk about the move up and down. I can also rename a topic. So if I got my dates mixed up, because sometimes I don't know what day it is, I can rename it. I can also delete it. So if I decide like, oh shoot, I actually don't want that one, I can just delete it as well. I want to talk about adding a material. It's kind of like the most basic, it has the fewest extra options and pieces. So I want to start with that one first. So I'm going to click that create button and I'm going to choose material. A material, again, is a one-way transmission of stuff. So you're giving them a thing. It's like passing out a packet or like passing out a video. They can't turn anything in from a material. It's just giving them a thing. It's like a resource. So when I click on that, you'll see it brings me to this like new window. And it's going to ask me for a title. This, again, I really want to make sure that my students don't have to waste a lot of cognitive energy knowing do they need to do something or not. And so, you know, while, again, maybe in normal times I might have called it, you know, like reptiles reading, right? That may not make sense to them or may not clue into them that they need to do it. So I'm actually going to name it reading due. Maybe I'll do Wednesday, middle of the week, so they don't have too much time. Wednesday for, what's Wednesday next week? 15th, I think. And then maybe I could put, you know, reptile reading after that to kind of, again, clue in this is maybe about reptiles. But again, they know that it's a reading, so they know they're going to be reading. They know that it's due on Wednesday. And again, that's, you know, not always knowing which day of the week it is. That can really help kind of center them in that I know that I need to do this by Wednesday. And then also centering that 4:15 is Wednesday. I can add some instructions here. And so I can say, you know, please choose one of the 2 articles to read, right? I can also put some instructions in here about what to do next after you read. So I can say, you know, once you finish reading, open up homework due Wednesday 4-15. So again, I'm going to kind of use that same naming convention so that, you know, this is the reading that's due Wednesday, and I'm going to point them when I make an assignment, I'm going to call it homework due Wednesday 4:15. So I'm kind of including that, you know, once you finish this, then there's a next step already for you to do. You'll notice I can't change size or bold anything in here. It's kind of a blank plain box, but it's enough to get the job done. And then I can add things. So when I click that add button, I've got some options. I can attach things from Google Drive. So if I have a Google slide deck or if I have a Google Doc, I can attach things from here, drawings, anything like that. If you had a spreadsheet, like a data set you wanted them to look at, you could attach that. Again, this is a material, so it's a one-way. It's a thing to look at, not a thing to necessarily like do or work with. But let's see, I might do a lot of strange things in here right now. I might attach this. This is an agenda for another webinar, but I might attach. I own that document, so I'm going to attach it. And so you can see it tells me the title. It gives me a little bit of a preview here, and there's an X where I can remove it if I don't like it, or if I pick the wrong one. I can attach a link. So if I've got a website that I want to point students to, I'm going to use our webinar recordings website. I'm going to copy that link. Okay, so I'm going to paste this link in here. Oh, I didn't get it copied. It looks like. Oh, copy. Okay, there we go. I'm going to paste that link in there. And so then when I click add link, you'll see it gives me again a little bit of a preview of what the website looks like. It tells me the name and it tells me that URL. I can also add files. So if you were going to add a PDF file from your computer or like a video file that's saved on your computer, you would do it with file. I can also attach videos with YouTube. So I can go to YouTube and I can search like reptiles. This is a reptile reading. And see what it comes up with. Sure. Hopefully you pick an actually great video, but it's telling me that it's 11 minutes long. So I'm like, ooh, that's kind of a long video. I think I'm not going to use that one. So I can click that X and get rid of it. You can also create things, but usually a lot of times we have things we already want. So the add button is oftentimes more useful. In the upper kind of right-hand corner-ish, there's this box that says 4. And if I click on that, this is where I can post to multiple classes at once. So if I have 5 periods of Spanish 1, I don't have to make this reading, 5 times. I don't have to recreate this material 5 times. I can just check the classes that I want it to be added to, and Google Classroom will do that for me. It'll put it in all those places. I only want to put it here. I don't want to put this strange conglomeration of things anywhere else. If I only choose one class, I also have the option to choose which students can get this material. So if I choose multiple classes, it doesn't let me choose students anymore because there's just too many. But if I just have one class chosen, I can choose which students get it. And so right now it's checked that all students get it. But if I've got a small group, maybe I have a reptiles group and a mammals group and an amphibians group, I can actually only assign the relevant material to specific students. And the other students won't see it's there. They won't even know it exists. They can't access it. So if I uncheck all students, then I can choose maybe student 40, 42, and 43 are in the reptile group. I can give just them this material. I'm going to leave it checked as all students for now. And then the really important step is that putting it under that topic, because that's how students are going to be able to find it and know where it is. So when I click on that, you'll see that it's a little wonky. It's actually done alphabetically, which is why the dates look a little funny. Luckily, this is also the most current date. It's conveniently April at the top. But you'll see that those dates do just look a little bit out of order. It's not doing it chronologically, it's doing it alphabetically. But I'm going to choose April 13th, and that's going to put it again under that topic to make it easy to filter and find. In the very upper right-hand corner, I have that big post button. There's also a little down arrow here. If I click on that, I can schedule this so that if I want to, maybe I'm working on it on Sunday evening, and I want them to get it first thing Monday morning, I can actually schedule it so that Classroom will post it automatically for me Monday morning on the specific date and time that I choose. I can also save it as a draft. So if I'm not done with it yet, if I want to, come back and edit some more, or I'm not quite sure, who's going to be in what group yet, I can save it as a draft, and none of the students can see it until I come back in and post it. So I'm actually going to show you that. I'm going to save it as a draft. So you'll see that it's grayed out and it's telling me it's a draft. And so before students can see this, before they'll know that it's there and be able to see that it's there, I have to go back in the Snow Person menu, click those 3 dots. I'll have to go to Edit. I can make any changes I need to make, and then I can post it. And it's going to say, are you sure? And I'm going to say, yes, I'm ready. Post it. And now you'll see it's in full color so that I know that it's posted. It even tells me when it was posted. I'm going to go back up to the Create button, and now I want to talk about an assignment. An assignment is where you have students turn something into you or where, again, they can like almost like check something off. They can mark it as done. So I've got an assignment here at the top. There's also a quiz assignment. A quiz assignment is, it makes a Google form, and you can ask questions, multiple choice, short answer, those kinds of questions. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do in forms. But just know that a quiz assignment, there's no way to lock down a student's device to keep them from looking at other sites on the internet, to keep them from talking to other people. It's not a secure, proctored sort of space. So if you do choose to do a quiz assignment, just know that it's basically an open internet quiz. So you might want to kind of think about, again, the things you ask them in there. We're going to have to get a little creative with assessment during this time. But forms are certainly a very cool thing that you can add and do a lot of neat things with. Just know that they can access anything while they do it. So I'm going to click assignment. And you'll see it brings this window that's very, very similar. I can give it a title. Remember, I said I was going to call it homework due Wednesday / I already forgot what day that was, 15, I think. And I can say that it's a T-chart. Again, I can specify what it is. But again, in my opinion, that naming really helps because it lets them know, like, oh, this is homework, I need to do it. I can again put instructions in here. And so I can say, please add at least 4 pieces of evidence to each side of the T-chart. Again, you'll see that I can't put anything, I can't change colors, I can't make things bold, I can't insert any images. If I needed to do something like really in-depth, like to explain, like to walk them through some steps or show them a model, you could actually do that in a Google Doc and attach that down here as a directions document. And so then your instructions would say, like, please read the directions document. And so again, if you had those like deeper in-depth instructions, you might want to consider doing it that way, where you put the instructions in a Google Doc, where you can insert images, where you can make things red or bold or bigger, because you can't do that inside this box. But if you don't have really complex instructions, then you don't need to do that. You can just put the instructions in here. I can attach things again from Drive. Well, I can attach all the same things as before. So I can attach a link. I can attach a file, like a PDF or a YouTube video, or like a video on my desktop. I can also attach a YouTube video. I'm going to attach something from Google Drive because I want to show you a really cool feature. If I attach a Google file, like a Google Docs, a Google Slides, a spreadsheet, a Google Sheets, a Google Drawing, I can actually I have some extra options that I don't have with PDFs or with videos. So I'm going to do this with my T-chart. I'm going to add my T-chart here. And you'll see that when I added it, it looks pretty much the same. It gives me that preview, tells me the name. I've got the X on the side, but there's this extra box here. And this only shows up with an assignment. You won't see this in a material. And that's because an assignment, remember, is like for them to turn something in. They're supposed to give you something back. And so I've got some options. If I click on this, I can have it so students can just look at this file. They can't edit it. I can have it so that students can edit it. That puts all the students in on the same document. And your first instinct might be like, oh, that would be terrible. 35 kids running around a document, that sounds like a mess. But it actually works really well, especially with small groups. I don't know that I'd put 35 kids on the same document. But with small groups, again, if I had like a reptiles group and I had a mammals group and an amphibians group, I could have the reptiles group could be assigned just this assignment, so none of the other groups see it, and then they're in on the same document working collaboratively. That's a pretty neat option. So again, that edit file puts anybody this is assigned to in on the same document. But I can also make a copy for each student. So that's like using Google Classroom like a photocopier, where it will automatically make a copy for me of this particular T-chart. This is an empty T-chart. I want them to fill it in. I want them each to fill in their own T-chart. They can't see each other's. And so I'm going to say make a copy for each student. And so I can add, again, multiple things down here. I only have the one, so I'm just going to leave the one. You could certainly have your assignment have the reading and then the thing to do right after. You could certainly attach both. So it's kind of up to you if you want to use the material or if you want to just attach your material inside of your assignment. In the upper right-hand corner, I've got those same options. I can assign to multiple classes at once. So if I've got 5 periods of the same class, I can assign it to all those periods at once without remaking it. I can also, if I only have one class, I can choose which students get it. So we kind of talked about that with like that students can edit the file. If I had a small group and having them edit a collaborative file together would be really neat. So I can, again, choose that, and I would uncheck all students, and just the students I check will see this particular assignment, and none of the other students will see it. They won't know that it's there. They don't know it exists. Only the students that check it, that have checks next to them will see it and can turn it in. I'm gonna leave it checked as all students. I can do points here, and so I can say this is worth 20 points. I can also choose that it's ungraded if I want to. Now there's a due date here, and due dates are kind of tricky right now because for some students, right now is a really uncertain time in their house. You know, that maybe they don't have access to a device until the evening when a parent or family member is done working with it. Maybe they're expected to babysit, you know, siblings or family members during the day. And so they, you know, maybe don't have, you know, we used to have that like designated time and space where we did schoolwork together. And so due dates were, you know, more reasonable because we'd all be together working on something. Right now, where students don't necessarily have that specific time or space to do schoolwork, due dates can be a little bit anxiety-inducing sometimes. Especially, I think we all know some of those students who just due dates can really cause some anxiety if they're not going to meet them. I would encourage you to still put a due date on your assignments. Due dates feed into those guardian email summaries. That's what tells a guardian that something is missing if it wasn't turned in by the due date. That's what tells them that things are coming up. And so I would encourage you to still use that due date feature here and give your assignments due dates. But you might want to, you know, again, have those conversations with students and families that due dates are a little flexible right now. That like this due date is a goal, but if you need 1 or 2 more days, I won't take any points off. No big deal. So that's again kind of that like norming of your class right now. That, you know, due dates in previous times might have been really solid. That the due date was the due date, and that was that. But I would again encourage you to still use this due date function since it feeds into those guardian email summaries. But, you know, again, maybe, you know, have those talks around how like I'll take it up to a week after, or, you know, that kind of stuff that like with no penalty, just to kind of reduce some of those anxieties. So I'm going to click on due date, and I can, you know, choose a date. I said this was due on the 15th, so I'm going to choose the 15th. I can put a time in. Again, I don't know that I would. If you make something due by noon on Wednesday, who knows when the student will have access to the device. I often use this in person to make something due at the end of class, but I don't know that I would use this right now. So if I clicked on it and put a time in here, I can just exit out, get rid of it. So it's due Wednesday, April 15th. Here's that all-important step of putting it under a topic so it's easy to find. So I'm going to stick it under the 13th to the 17th. I can attach a rubric. A rubric is a way of grading students that allows you to distinguish that the different things you're looking for in their assignment are worth different points. And then also saying what different levels of performance for those points look like. So again, I've got a T-chart. I asked for evidence. I might be looking for the strength of their evidence is one of the things I'm grading when I grade their T-chart. And I might say the strength of evidence is worth 10 points because it's really important that you have strong evidence. And so I can say that out of these 20 points, 10 are going towards strength of evidence. And here's what 10 points worth of strong evidence looks like. Here's what 8 points of strong evidence looks like. Here's what 6 points. I can kind of show them, and so students will be able to see the rubric, and they'll be able to really strive to get the point level that they're going for. So if I click on that rubric button, I can create a new one. I can also reuse one. So if I have a rubric that I really like, I can actually reuse a rubric from a former assignment that I can keep using the same rubric. And then when you're in the grading feature, the grading part of Classroom, you'll be able to check those boxes in the rubric to quickly assign scores. It tabulates it for you. It's pretty cool. The other thing down here is originality reports. Originality reports are like plagiarism checkers, kind of like turnitin.com. There are some caveats here. If you're interested in originality reports, I would click this blue Learn More down here. So when you're in an assignment, you can learn more about originality reports. Long story short, you get 3 assignments with originality reports per class per school year. So what that means is that in this particular classroom, maybe this is period 3. In period 3, I can have three assignments this year that use originality reports. So you're welcome to use them. I think they're a really great tool. When students submit, they actually can see what their originality report is. So if it's before the deadline, they can take it back and fix some things and turn it back in and see it'll update the originality report for them. So that's pretty cool. But just know that you can only do it on 3 assignments per class. So you can't use it on every single one. So I'd say use them sparingly, but again, feel free to use them. But if you're going to use them, again, I would read that Learn More first so you know more about them before you do. At the very top, again, I've got that big Assign button. I've also got this little down arrow, same options. I can schedule this. I can save it as a draft. I'm not ready to show it to students yet. I'm going to go ahead and assign it. You can see. Oh, it's taking a minute. Okay. And you'll see here it is right here underneath that topic. I can rearrange these. So if I decided I wanted that first, I could do that. I can also put it, if it's in the wrong topic, I can move it to a different one. I want to put it back where it belongs so I don't lose it. If I click on it, again, I'm a teacher in this class, and so I get this special view. Students don't see this, but I get to see this. I have 13 total students in my class, and so these two numbers will always add up to 13. So once someone turns it in, this will turn to 1, 0 turns to a 1, and the assigned turns to a 12. And so the assigned number is kind of like that, like how many kids do I need to go check in and like, you know, maybe talk to and see how things are going because they haven't turned it in yet. But again, students don't see that, only me as the teacher sees it. And when I click view assignment, I can go in and actually see their, I can do that, I'll click on that. You'll see that it shows me, because I made a copy for each student, it's showing me their, each one of their copies. And so I can actually click in and like look in their copy, even if they haven't turned it in yet. I want to go back and talk about the stream. A scheduled assignment, I saw that question really quick. A scheduled assignment shows up gray like a draft does. So it's kind of grayed out because, again, students can't see it yet because it's scheduled. And it'll tell you over here, like here where it says due April 15th, it'll say scheduled and tell you what time it's scheduled for. And you can still edit it. I can still click on those 3 dots. I can change when it's scheduled for. Every time I edit it, I have to reschedule it. But again, that's something you can kind of decide that you want to do. And so I can edit it or delete it inside these 3 dots. I want to move over and talk about the stream. So I'm going to click on stream here. Remember that the stream is the first place that you see when you go into a classroom. And so it can be a really great place to build some routines for when students come to your class, what they should do. You'll see over here on the left side, there's this upcoming box. And so it's showing me what things are due soon. And so like this homework is due Wednesday, the 15th. I can, it'll show me the things that are coming up. Again, that's that due date. If I assign a due date, it's going to show me things that are coming up soon. You'll see it also here has, these are kind of like little summaries. Like I posted that assignment, the homework due, the T-chart. I posted the reptile reading. I posted a test video. Here's a butterfly reading. You'll see, but as I scroll down, it starts to get really long. You'll see there's no topics here. It's hard to find stuff in here. It kind of, becomes almost like a scroll of death that I don't know where I am anymore. Like am I at the bottom, in the middle? I don't know. And so this can be a little bit difficult for students to navigate. You'll see on the left side, there's no way to filter by topics. There's no topics in the stream, only in the classwork tab do you have those topics. And so while the newest stuff is showing up here, you might also just have the routine in your class that kids just go to the classwork tab. When you come to classroom, go to the classwork tab because that's where you'll find your stuff. Because it's a little bit easier to find things in there to know what you need to do. There is a place here where I can post announcements. And so what I actually like to do is I like to change what shows up on the stream so that only my announcements show up. So remember up in that gear, up in the cog, we could choose what shows up in the stream. And so what this setting here is doing is it's that classwork on the stream. Anything from the classwork tab, what's going to show up on the stream. And right now it's set as condensed notifications, but I can actually choose to hide notifications. And I'll show you what that looks like. I'm going to click save. And so now you can see that all that stuff is gone. Because maybe in my class, the routine is that you come here and you look and see what the announcements say, what the most recent announcement says, and then you go to classwork and find the stuff in classwork that you don't also need it here. But it's kind of up to you. I know people that the routine is always just go to classwork. Don't even look for announcements, just go to classwork. But I can post an announcement here by clicking on that box. Again, I can post it to multiple classes at once. So if I've got multiple classes that need the same announcement, I can do that. If I'm only choosing one class, I can choose which students get it. So maybe on Mondays, I post a weekly announcement for everybody. And then on Thursdays, I post a reminder announcement just for some of the students that haven't, quite gotten all their stuff turned in yet. And so again, I can check which students see that. If I uncheck all, I can choose that only show student 40, 41, 42 will see this. By default, it's going to show it to everybody. And then I can put my announcement in here. And so I can say that, I can say, hi class, oops, I can spell. The work for this week, and I might let them know that that's April 13th through 17th, is posted. Please let me know if you have questions, right? Anything you might want to put in here. All that kind of stuff, whatever. I can put a reminder in here that, go to the classwork tab. So I might say it's posted on the classwork tab to remind them, classwork tab to remind them that's where they go to find it, kind of that scaffolding to make sure that they, get used to this routine. You'll see down here, I can attach stuff to this. I wouldn't recommend it because again, it gets really, once you have more than a couple of things, it's really hard to find stuff further down. So I would be in the habit of just adding everything to the classwork tab because it's got those filters. So you can put it in the place where it belongs. So I can, but again, I wouldn't add anything to it. And then I've got that post button and that same down arrow where I can schedule or I can save it as a draft. I'm not ready for it yet. I'm gonna go ahead and post it. Once I've posted it, I've got the same 3 dots. I can edit it if I want to, I can delete it. And so those are both really nice features. Really quick, you'll see there's this class comment feature. In my settings, I chose that students can comment on things, and I like that because then students can ask questions and can answer each other's questions. There can be discussion happening that doesn't require me necessarily to always answer all the questions. And so that's nice. You can also turn that off. If you have students that are misusing it, you can also mute individual students without taking away that comment feature for everybody. There's also an option in the settings, again, to allow, that's where students can only comment. You can also allow it where students can post. They can put announcements in and comment. So kind of up to you how you want to do it. You can also shut it down that only teachers. There's no other commenting, only teachers. So that is all of Classroom. I know it was really fast. I know it was a lot. Again, take just a couple things to walk away with today. Feel free to come to office hours. We're happy to help you with Classroom. I saw there was a question, Stu, that you wanted to ask.
Yeah, it was just if you make an edit to an assignment and you've posted that assignment in multiple classes, will it make the edit in all classes or just the one that you're in?
I think it makes it just in the one you're in.
That's what I thought. I was thinking.
Yeah. And so the way you would know that is, so if I go into this assignment to edit it, is where it's it's not even giving me the option to see. If it had that classes option where I could see that multiple classes were checked, and it's not giving me that. So I think it's just for the one class that you can edit the assignment for. So if you change your mind about an assignment, it might be easier just to delete the assignment in all the classes and then remake it in one, unless it's a little change, but you'll have to make it in each class. So either you can delete it in each class, or you can and remake it, posting to multiple classes with the updated if it's a big change, or if it's a little change, you'll have to go and make it in each class. Great question. We have, it's 11 o'clock. If you need to go, by all means, please go. There's a feedback form, I think. If Stu put it in the chat, he's going to find it right now. If you have a moment just to fill that out for us, we love hearing how we can make things better, what you want us to keep, and how we can make things better. There are webinars next week. On Thursday, we're doing webinars on the assignments feature in Classroom. So looking more deeply at what can you do within assignments, and how would I do groups, and some of that kind of stuff. We'll look really deeply at that, and how to use the feedback and grading tools. So if you're curious, come back next week on Thursday. And then we're also, like I said, doing that Meet first, using Meet with students, especially talking about this new Classroom feature that just came out, hot off the press. We're going to do those on Friday. So feel free to join us for either of those. And if you can't make it, we'll also have recordings posted within 24 hours of those webinars happening. So thanks so much for coming today. Hopefully we'll see you in office hours if you have questions. And we're really glad that you were able to join us for this webinar today. Take care, everybody, and stay safe and be well. Bye.
Thanks, Jessica.